Hi, Willie Mayette from Piano with Willie. Today, let's talk about when to use rootless chord voicings. So if you've missed my video yesterday, I was talking about why to use rootless chord voicings. So now that you understand why you use them from yesterday's video, now let's talk about when we use these types of voicings. So the first thing is, obviously, if you're playing with a bass player, bam, right there you can use these rootless chord voicings, okay? So we're talking jazz, we're talking even blues, like if I'm playing a blues in C. I'm just going to play a little bass line with my right hand just so you know that like you would normally play this. This would normally be a bass player. I just want to make sure you see that I'm playing left hand chords. So you see how I can play that bass line? I'd be playing along with a bass player, and then I could play these chords right here in my left hand, and then, improv or whatnot. Okay? So if you're playing with a bass player, rootless chord voicings is something fantastic to use, right? In a jazz or blues style, even like a Latin rock or a Latin jazz style, okay? As soon as you start getting into pop, that's when, you might actually still play some left hand even with a bass player, okay? But what you can do is then you can start to create these different types of left hand voicings, so you're not playing so many notes in the left hand and you're not playing them so low. So rather than playing it way down here, you might just do something like this. And there's also another technique in using rootless voicings, which I'll get to in a second. Remember, when I say voicing, I'm talking about how you arrange the notes of the chords. Okay? So we're just taking the notes of the chord and we're arranging them in a certain way, and that is called our chord voicing. Right? Okay, so jazz and blues, playing with a bass player, rootless chords, bam, fantastic to use. If you're playing bass yourself, and then you could use these chords in the right hand. So again, I was using Fly Me to the Moon, it's like. All right, and I'll write this example out as well. I don't know if it'll be exactly the same bass line, but basically. All right, so bass line in the left hand, rootless chords in the right hand. When would you use something like that? Well, you could use that if you're playing along with another instrumentalist or a singer. So like if I was going to sing, fly me to the moon and let me play amongst the stars, all right? Again, I'm not a singer, but you get the point, all right? So you can, if you sing yourself, this is a great way to accompany yourself while playing the song. You don't have to play a super crazy bass line. It could also be, fly me to the moon and let me play amongst the stars. Still rootless chord voicings over here. Sounds a lot better than playing those block chords and just plain old seventh chords. You can also utilize it as your improvisation. So let's say you went to, and then you went through the whole song. Right, so you've been through the whole song and now you're done. Instead of soloing, you could just go ahead and play the chords in the right hand and then play a bass line in the left hand. So what I'm saying is you could play through the arrangement of your song. In this particular case, I'm using Fly Me to the Moon. It could be any other song, okay? So you play through your arrangement and then you want to improvise rather than trying to. Rather than, what do I do over here? What scales? Okay, guess what? Don't worry about any of those scales for right now. Instead, play a bass line down here, just something simple like root and fifth of the chord. Root, fifth. And then play rootless chord voicings in the right hand. Add some comping rhythm to it. If you can keep going on with that. You can play a bass line and do some more improvisation. So the point is, playing a bass line down here along with these rootless chords in the right hand, right, is a very good technique to know. It comes in handy when you're going to accompany yourself while singing. If you're going to accompany another instrument like a sax, trumpet, whatever. If you're going to accompany a singer, okay, or if you're playing a solo piano style and you just want to kind of fill out the time a little bit. You're like, oh, gee, I don't want to keep improvising on this. I don't have enough ideas in my, in my bag of tricks to keep improvising. All right, well, just play some chords in the right hand and play a bass line in the left hand, right? Another technique, right, which will help create fuller arrangements. Remember, when we're trying to create a fuller arrangement, we're just looking for more and more techniques, to have up our sleeve that we can pull out in a moment's notice. Great technique to use with rootless chord voicings. All right, so then the last thing I want to talk about is, like, let's say you're doing, that pop or rock kind of thing. If you're playing just solo, if you're doing something like this, this could be contemporary Christian, it could be just pop, it could be rock, whatever. You could hear all these different styles right in this kind of sound. Right, so now look at what I'm able to do. If I have my roots down here in C, and I might throw in my fifth there as well, all right? So you see how rather than just playing a triad, now I can bring in those concepts of a rootless chord voicing. Take away the root, and then instead use the ninth. See how I can get these cool sounds? All of this stuff in the right hand is the same concepts of rootless chord voicings, all right? Because the first step is that you learn your seventh chord. Well, the first real step is you learn your triad, right? We know that. And then you move on to the seventh, but then you start moving on to these rootless chord voicings. If you don't know how to do this, then you're not going to know how to... You're not going to understand this kind of stuff, right, if you don't know how to play those rootless chord voicings, because you won't understand all of the theory, right? A lot of times players will end up, kind of getting this stuff down, and they do it by hunting and pecking, or by just sometimes it's just sheer luck. They don't understand the theory behind what it is that they're playing. And when I work with students like that, it's always kind of saddens me a little bit, because if you understood the formula, if they understood what it was that they were doing, it would like unlock all of this creative potential for them. Okay, so this is why it's really important to understand when you bring in these rootless chord voicings. Okay, so to summarize one more time, remember rootless chord voicings. Bam, we got a bass player. We're playing along with a bass player. Jazz, blues, whatever. Yeah, we can use those rootless chord voicings in the left hand. So fly me to the moon, right? Do the rootless chord voicing in the left hand and then play the melody in the right hand, or do improvisation. Next thing, I could do a bass line in the left hand. Like, let's say I'm going to do a blues. Right? All rootless chord voicings in the right hand, along with that bass line in the left hand, just really cooking along there. Okay? So fantastic. If you like organ, bam, you really want to know those rootless voicings, okay? Because that comes in handy with the right hand while you're kicking that left hand bass. If you're playing along like in more of a pop rock kind of sound, then again, you can utilize those rootless chord voicings. I also talked briefly last time about that rootless chords with the root stomp. So what I'm doing here is, so see what I'm doing this time is I play the root, then I play the rootless chord voicing. Okay? Root, then rootless chord voicing. Root, then rootless chord voicing. Right? So that gets a very interesting sound. One thing I want to point out is on the D minor, you notice that I played this D minor 7 chord. Actually, that's what I wrote in. So I could change around my rootless chord voicing here as well. I don't have to always play that 9th up in the top. Instead, I'm playing the 11th down in here. Again, this comes from really starting to understand the way these rootless chord voicings are formed. As you start to understand that more, now these possibilities of chords start to completely open up for you. All right? And the last thing I want to leave you with is this is how you can also create a kind of a cool stride pattern. So here I'm going to the root, rootless chord voicing, then the 5th. Rootless chord voicing. So, and in the right hand, I'll just do some simple little lick. I like kind of pick it up there and start to move into a faster bass line doing those rootless chord voicings. But again, root, chord, 5th, chord. Again, using those rootless chord voicings, all right? So the rootless chord voicing is really, like I said, there's layering here. The absolute beginning pianists, they just start by learning triads. That's exactly where you should start. Homeschool piano, we're talking about triads. Homeschool piano, we then move on to 7th chords, right, and shells. But after you understand your 7th chords and your shells, now it's time to move on to rootless chord voicings. That's the next step in the evolution of chords for a pianist. Doesn't matter what style of music you play, whether it be pop music, whether it be Latin music. If it's Latin music, if it's jazz, if it's blues, it doesn't matter what style of music. Gospel music, definitely. Doesn't matter what style of music you're working on, you want to start to understand rootless chord voicings, okay? Now, what's most important, where like a lot of students ask me, all right, great, I'm going to learn these rootless chord voicings. How do I practice these? And guess what? That's going to be in tomorrow's video. We're going to talk about how to practice these rootless chord voicings because I really have some very good techniques that help students learn these rootless chord voicings a lot more effectively and a lot faster than just trying to do them around the circle of fifths or all 12. I'll explain all of that tomorrow. All right, so anyway, that's it. Thanks for hanging with me in this lesson. I'll see you in tomorrow's lesson.